Good evening, our cherished listeners. Once again, we are here with you at EducationUSA Ghana Facebook Live session. Today, we are featuring a school in New York by name Hamilton College. Let me see by hands if you have heard about this school before. By the way, my name is Bernice Afute. I'm an EducationUSA advisor from the US Embassy in Accra. And if you're wondering what EducationUSA is, we are a network of EducationUSA centers sponsored by the US government. We provide information on US higher education, and we also guide interested applicants or individuals through the process. We have 2 offices in Accra and Kumasi throughout Ghana. There are only 2, but we try to provide as wide a coverage as possible. At the end of this session, we will leave our contact information on the screen for you, so you can pick our numbers and our emails. If you want to use EducationUSA services, you will reach out to us. Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have 2 lovely ladies from Hamilton College. They're very powerful. We have Miss Anna Weiss. She is the Director of International Recruitment, but she's also the Associate Dean of Admissions. Powerful, right? We also have Ms. Brenna May. She is the Senior Associate Dean of Admission. I will turn over to these beautiful ladies to take us through 2 things. One, they will tell us a lot about Hamilton and how we can get in there, what goes on in Hamilton and how we can get in there. And then secondly, they will tell us about what admissions officers look out for in international applications. Because we are all in Ghana, when we apply, we will be seen as international students. What do they look out for? Stay tuned and enjoy. If during the presentation you have any questions, do well to send them either on the Accra page or the Kumasi Facebook page, and we will pick all your questions and answer before we leave here today. Enjoy, and over to you, Miss Anna.
Thank you so much. Oh, is that okay? Thank you so much, Bernice, and thank you to the very talented and powerful team of EducationUSA Ghana and Accra and Kumasi. I know I was able to visit the team in Accra last fall as part of the West African tour, so I had a very good, although brief, visit in Ghana last year. Thank you for providing us this opportunity. We're glad to talk to you today about some of the aspects of applying to colleges in the US as an international student. As Bernice outlined, we're going to be starting with a little information about Hamilton, just so you know a little bit about who we are and where we're coming from, before then proceeding into more wider advice for applications. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at this point. Hopefully you should be able to see my screen now. A little bit of a title page for you. And we're going to start with a little bit of an outline. So this is what you can expect for this upcoming hour that we will be together. First, we're going to talk a little bit about Hamilton College, and then we're going to get into elements of an application and how to be a competitive applicant in the US as an international student. So with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Brenna.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you to everyone who's watching today. We're excited to share a bit about Hamilton with you. So first, we thought we'd start with a slide just of some beautiful images of our campus. You can also see other images both behind myself and Anna in our virtual backgrounds. These are pictures of campus behind us, just to give you a sense of what campus feels like at Hamilton. This slide shows you some great facts about the college, and I'll go through a few of them. So Hamilton College is a small, private, liberal arts college located in upstate New York. That means we're about a 4-hour drive from New York City, and we're right in the middle of the state if you look at a map of New York. We were founded in 1793, so we are the third oldest college in New York State. So we have a long history of educating students all the way back to the 1700s. I mentioned we're a small school. We only have about 1,850 students. That is quite small for schools in the US. And all of our students are undergraduate, meaning they are pursuing bachelor's degrees. We offer Bachelor's of Arts degrees. That, however, does not mean that we don't offer the sciences. We have lots of programs in the sciences and the humanities and really everything else that you can think of on campus. You can see that we are ranked number 14 in the National Liberal Arts Colleges in the US, and that we have about 7% of our students who identify as international citizens, and they come from 49 countries. So of those 1,850 students, we have students from all over the world at Hamilton who are contributing to our academic and our social life on campus. Academics, of course, are very important to us. We will get into more of that in just a moment, but know that we do have very small classes because of our small size. We have a 9-to-1 faculty to student ratio, meaning that you will be in small classrooms, not big lecture halls like you might see at larger universities. We have a very generous financial aid system for all of our students, including international students. Again, we will talk more specifically about this in a little while, but that is our financial aid budget that you can see on the screen right now. We also have a very generous research budget for students. In our academic sphere, we have a lot of students who are pursuing research on campus in all the different fields, and there are a lot of finances that go along with that to support you. In case you were wondering, we are named after Alexander Hamilton. That's part of our long history dating back to the 1700s. Alexander Hamilton sat on the first board of trustees at Hamilton in 1793, and that's where we get our name from. That's also who the statue is in that picture on the screen right there. So if anyone's planning to watch the Hamilton musical that comes out online tomorrow, then you can learn a little bit more about Alexander Hamilton. And then finally, our motto at Hamilton is know thyself. We think this is really important, that you get to figure out who you are while you're a college student, but we also make a 3-part Hamilton promise to our students. The first of that promise is that you will study what you love on Hamilton's campus. So this, of course, is relating to academics, thinking about what you're going to learn while you're in college. And I mentioned that we have small classes and we have a wide range of academic disciplines. Even more so, we have an open curriculum at Hamilton. This is pretty unusual. Even in colleges in the US, there are about 5 colleges that have an open curriculum. And at Hamilton, it means that we have no general education requirements. Many colleges and many high schools will require you to take 1 course or 2 courses in each of the academic subjects. So a course in math, a course in English, a course in history, etc. At Hamilton, we don't require you to do that because we want you to study what you love. We want you to figure out what you are really passionate about in academics. This means that if you do know what you would like to study right from your first year at Hamilton, you can do that from the very beginning. On the other end, if you're not sure what you want to study, that's very common with our students, and you can have the room you need to explore different academic areas. So if you want to try out a couple of different academic areas before deciding on a major, then you have plenty of flexibility to do that in your curriculum. That's really what it means to have an open curriculum on our campus. We understand that the open curriculum can be a little bit intimidating for students, especially if you're not sure what you want to study. And that is why we do have academic advisors who will help you with that process. That academic advisor eventually will be in your chosen field of study. So if, for example, you choose to study biology, you'll have a biology professor as your academic advisor, and they will help you figure out maybe what career you'd like to pursue, certainly what classes you'd like to choose, and what other things that you might be passionate about while you're at Hamilton. Because of the flexibility, it's very common to double major at Hamilton, meaning that you have 2 areas of study. So about 20% of our students have not 1, but 2 majors at Hamilton. You can also certainly have a major and a minor, so a primary field of study and then also a smaller field that you're interested in. You can even have 1 major and 2 minors. So there is a lot of flexibility in that as well. Even within the open curriculum, though, we do have a focus on writing, communication, and research. So we have our students take 3 writing intensive courses while they're at Hamilton. We want you to build up your writing skills before you graduate. Writing at Hamilton can look like a lot of different things. It can look like a traditional history class where maybe you're doing a research paper, but we also have writing intensive courses in mathematics, in sciences, in the arts. All of these things are different types of writing, but still things that we think are important for you to learn. We also have a lot of academic centers that will help support you. You'll see them listed on the screen right there for writing, oral communication, so public speaking, and then also quantitative and symbolic reasoning, which is more focused on math and science and things with numbers. So these centers are there to support students who might need a little bit of extra help in an area if you're struggling. The next section, I mentioned research before, and we do have a lot of funding for research on campus. It is very common for our students to undergo research projects while they're at Hamilton. Despite the fact that we are an undergraduate institution, we have a lot of connection with our faculty members who are pursuing really interesting research on campus, and undergraduate students get to help them with that research. In addition, you do have the opportunity to do your own unique research as well. So if there's something you'd like to pursue while you're in college, you can almost certainly do that while you're at Hamilton. And then finally, our students are very interested in exploring the world. Of course, you as international students are already studying abroad if you come to the US for college. But if you would like to go to another country for a semester or even for a full year, that is very possible. About 60% of students will study off campus at some point during their 4 years at Hamilton. We have programs all over the world. We also have some that are in the US. They're listed here: Boston, New York City, and Washington, DC. These are programs that are internship based. So if you're interested in having an internship and maybe exploring another city in the US, then these are really great programs to do that with. So I mentioned that we have a 3-part Hamilton promise that we make to our students. The second part is that you will be who you are on campus. And this relates a bit more to what student life looks like. You can see a little bit of the breakdown of our student body there at the top. We have students from 47 states and 49 countries. 16% of students are the first in their families to attend college, and 50% of our students receive financial aid. Again, we'll talk more about that later. With such a diverse student body, we're very lucky that everyone at Hamilton is required to live on campus for all 4 years. This means that you will never have to look for a place to live off campus. You always have the support of the Hamilton community while you're at Hamilton. And it also means that you get to fully engage with what's going on our campus. We're located in a beautiful area of New York in the small town of Clinton, which is near a mountain range called the Adirondacks. So if you like to hike or ski, or if you have never done those things before but would like to try them, then Hamilton is a really good place to do that. We have also over 200 student organizations on campus. They range everywhere from athletics to fraternities and sororities to musical groups and theater. Really anything that you might want to try, we can offer you on Hamilton's campus. Students tend to be very willing to try new things at Hamilton. So the third part of our promise is that you will find your future at Hamilton. And this relates a bit to what happens after you graduate. How do we prepare students for success in their career? This starts with our Career Center on campus. In addition to the academic advisor that I mentioned before, every Hamilton student has a career advisor as well. This is someone who you will meet with for all 4 years at Hamilton. You don't need to wait until your final year to start thinking about a career. You can do that in your first year. And they can help guide you towards a career, possibly graduate school, whatever you're looking to do. We do have pre-professional advisors as well. This means that if you're interested in something like going into law or business, those kinds of programs, we have advisors who can guide you in that direction. And even though we are a liberal arts college, I think some people assume that you can't go into one of these pre-professional careers unless you have a really specific undergraduate degree. That's not the case. Many of our students go on into the business world or even go to law school without necessarily having studied that in undergraduate. So the skills that you're learning at Hamilton, like writing and public speaking and critical thinking skills, are ones that graduate schools find very attractive. So your career advisor will help you with all of that. We also have a wonderful alumni network. They are consistently ranked in the top 1% nationally for their engagement with our campus. And that means that they're very generous with their time, with their networking, with internships at their companies or at companies that they know of. And they're just very willing to connect with our students. You will frequently see our alumni on campus, perhaps doing mock interview workshops, or just generally working with students to get them ready for life after Hamilton. You can see a couple of our famous alumni listed here. We have Pulitzer Prize winners, one of the co-founders of Netflix is a Hamilton alum, and the current CEO of Goldman Sachs, which is a financial firm in New York City. So all over the board, we have people in our alumni network who can help our students with their career goals. And at the very bottom down there, you can see a few of the statistics about the outcomes for our students. What are they doing after graduation? Within 10 months of graduating from Hamilton, 97% of our students are either working full-time in a graduate school program or in some kind of fellowship like Teach for America or the Peace Corps, something like that, that is a full-time commitment. So that's a pretty good rate. Our students do very, very well. Also, 97% of our students graduate with at least one internship during their time at Hamilton. 81% have at least 2 internships. And I believe it's something like 23% have 4 or more internship experiences while they're at Hamilton. So there are a lot of opportunities to engage with that full-time internship experience before you even graduate from college. So I told you, I promised that we would talk about a bit about financial aid. So this is something that Hamilton feels very strongly about. And here's a little bit about our policy. First, we do not have any merit scholarships at Hamilton. So that means no academic scholarships and also no athletic scholarships. All of our financial aid is based on your family's financial need. And why do we do this? The main reason is because we want to focus on access and opportunity. By doing a need-based financial aid system, we can allocate all of our funds right where people need them the most. So we can make it as affordable as we can for as many people as we can to attend Hamilton. We are need blind for our domestic applicants, and we are need sensitive for international applications. This means that we will consider your family's ability to pay in the admission process, but we do guarantee to meet 100% of the demonstrated financial need for all admitted students, including international students. So if you apply to Hamilton and are accepted and you require financial assistance to attend, we will meet that need 100%. Last year, we had about a $4 million budget for financial aid for international students. So we do have funds available, and this is the reason we have that 100% financial need met policy, because we want to make it possible for students to attend Hamilton. Our website has calculators you can use to try to figure out what your cost of attendance at Hamilton might be. So we do encourage you to take a look at those on our financial aid website. It can give you an idea of what that might look like. And now I will turn it back over to Anna to talk about what is holistic review.
Thank you so much, Brenna. I appreciate it. So at this point, we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to talk about what admissions officers look for in international applicants. And in order to do so, we're going to talk to you about the admissions process that most colleges across the US follow when they're considering applications. And we're going to talk to you about elements of those application parts, advice for you in filling it out, ways to make a competitive application, particularly as an international student. So as mentioned at the beginning, there will be many opportunities for you to ask questions. Please do ask your questions through the chat box. Those will be passed to us at the end of this presentation. I'm going to do my very best to clarify policies that I'm talking about and strategies that I'm talking about to make sure that students know which ones will qualify for all institutions and which ones they might have to do a little more research. So the important thing to realize is when you do apply to the United States, to colleges in the United States, we have a lot of commonalities in our application plans, but oftentimes it's up to you to find the specifics as the applicant. So I'm going to go through several elements of a US application and some ways that you can stand out in those elements. But it is very important for whichever colleges or universities that you are applying to, that you ensure you are doing your own research to understand the variance that they have in their admissions policies. So I said, we have some things that are similar to each other, but each institution will have slight variances, which can be a little frustrating, but means you have to do some research. So with that said, we're going to talk about holistic review, which is the strategy that most colleges in the United States would take, including Hamilton College. What is holistic review? Holistic review basically means we do not have specific cutoffs, meaning students need to receive all A's on the WASI results, or students have without such and such test score would not be admissible. It means that we're considering your academics and your social factors to your application. Brenna mentioned earlier one of our promises on campus, which is to be who you are, and this talks about how important community is at Hamilton. So when we're considering students for admission, we're very fortunate that we receive a lot of applications from around the world for students who would be academically competitive and admissible at our institution. So we consider two different elements of applicants when we're looking at them for admission. The first is academically, would they be able to compete and to be successful in our rigorous academic courses? But we're also thinking about the fact that we are 100% residential, which means any student that we admit is going to be on our campus for 4 years. And we want to know, how would you contribute to our community here at Hamilton? So that is why we look at things like recommendation letters, your college essay, your extracurricular. We're trying to get an idea of you as a human being and how would you contribute to our campus environment. With that said, there is a lot of human elements in the holistic review. And one of the things that I think is great about our opportunity to work with EducationUSA virtually like this is that you can hopefully get an idea of us as people, right? So Brenna and I are both some of the admission officers at Hamilton campus, and we are genuine human beings, which means that we're approaching each application not at a automated computer methodology, but rather from the human angle. And when we use the holistic review approach, this allows us also to consider context of an applicant. We'll talk about that in a little bit more. And it allows us to consider the stories and the circumstances that you and your friends would be applying to Hamilton with. So why would we use holistic review? This is because it allows us to create a diverse community of on our campus and to celebrate a variety of types of students and their contributions they would make to our community here. The good news is that we do not have minimum requirements. So there's no, if you say, what is the minimum requirement for WASI results, for mark sheets, for A-levels, whichever curriculum you're studying, we'll tell you we don't have cutoffs because we use this holistic review approach. So now, what are we looking for, right? The topic of this presentation is, what do admission officers look for? So let's start with a few helpful tips, do's and don'ts for application review. The first thing, as I mentioned, is that you need to do research on the specific college or university where you are applying. So it's important that you understand all of their deadlines and requirements, because each college and university would have slight variations upon their requirements. And if you do not meet those requirements, by deadlines and all of that, it's going to mean your application will be at a very significant disadvantage in review. Second, we want to take advantage of opportunities for engagement with the admission office. So right now you are actually engaging with an admission office through watching this live panel with EducationUSA Ghana. We have posted in the side, I believe, a link where you can actually sign up for additional information from Hamilton. So if you're interested in what you're hearing today, we encourage you to fill out that link in order to get more information from Hamilton College. We'll talk a little bit more about additional opportunities you would have for engaging with colleges in just a little bit. But it is important to know, again, we are human beings and we want to engage with you. If you have questions about our academic programs or applications, which cannot be reviewed from the website. We do want to consider your application in its totality. This means when we say holistic review, you should be thinking about your application holistically. In the US, we have this saying which says, missing the forest for the trees. The idea being you see each tree individually, but you don't see the overall forest, right? So you want to think about your application in a similar way. Yes, you need to focus on your college essay. Yes, you need to focus on your extracurriculars. Yes, you want to focus on all of that content, but you also want to try and take a step back and look at your application as a whole. Does it make sense? Does it project the best version of you because of course it should be a genuine version of you that is representing, but it should be you on a good day, right? You on a good day, and the image of yourself that you wish your college to consider. So think about your application in its entirety, and what type of story does it tell about you? Think about seeing the forest, not just the trees. So the second thing, we want to consider the voice. And again, this is a similar theme. Your application should reflect you as an individual as close as possible. And again, focusing on the positive version of you, yes? So you want to think about, does this application sound identifiable to you, right? Does it seem genuine to you, or does it seem like an image of yourself that you're trying to portray that you think an admission officer would want to see? Because you can tell generally genuine representation of a student versus if they think they're writing this application for the benefit of admission officers, and what admission officers might want to see. We are going to talk about a few different application plans. This would mean applying early decision or regular decision. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit, just what are those and what are some benefits. There's something to consider utilizing if you're interested in applying, particularly to selective colleges in the United States. You do want to ask meaningful questions. I mentioned this earlier, where we have several people who are happy to engage with you on meaningful questions. There is a difference, though, between meaningful questions and emailing every day with just hello, ma'am, types of information. You want to make sure when you're emailing with us that you have a real question that you're not able to answer through the website that you'd like to engage with us on, or if you have additional information about your application that you want to share with us. We're always very happy to hear in that regard. Now, some things to avoid. Now, if you fill out the common application, which is a common type of applying to the United States, there's a certain amount of spots for extracurricular activities. And several students might think, oh, I need to fill every single spot because that is what's going to make me competitive, right? In reality, when we talk about extracurricular activities, we are considering what is really important to you. What types of, maybe you've been very involved in football, maybe you've been very involved in Model UN, maybe you've done a lot of volunteer work. What's individual to you, and where do your passions lie? Don't feel the need to fill every single spot, because then it can come off sometimes as, oh, I went on this one church trip when I was in 8th grade and it was a week, and I'm going to fill a slot with that. That's fine. And if was a meaningful experience for you, great. But oftentimes you can you don't have to ensure that you fill all of the spaces, just fill them with those that are really true reflections of your passion and your interests. We also have students sometimes who will send a lot of recommendation letters. At Hamilton, we require 2 recommendation letters, and we oftentimes will see students with 3 or maybe 4. Once you start getting over 5 recommendation letters, it starts to get a little excessive. I think the record I've seen is over 80 recommendation letters from one student. If I see 80 recommendation letters from a student, I generally think there might be a problem that they're trying to overcompensate for, right? So I would encourage you, once you have 5 recommendation letters, that probably is going to be sufficient. I wouldn't worry about going too much further. Now, the next one is indicating a specific institution in your college essay. Oftentimes we'll read essays that seem really great, but will reference the wrong college, right? So if you're going to be applying to Harvard, or you're going to be applying to University of California, San Diego, great. But if you write the name of a college in your college application essay, there's oftentimes errors where you'd send an essay to the wrong college with the wrong college name in it, if that makes sense. It happens every year multiple times, and it's just a good thing to avoid. So if possible, don't reference your college name in your college essay. We understand you're applying to multiple colleges, but we want to believe that your priority, of course, is Hamilton. Okay, and also we want to make sure that you're not waiting until the deadline to submit your application, right? So if we wait until the deadline, what happens? Maybe our Wi-Fi cuts out, our computer crashes, we have the wrong version of our essay. All of that information happens when you wait till the deadline. So if the deadline is January 1st, it's advisable that you try and get your application in a few weeks before that, so that you're not panicking at the last moment. Okay, so we're going to talk about elements of your application at this point. The first one we want to talk about is testing. Testing can be something that a lot of people are nervous about in traditional times. It's important to know in the US, we consider 2 types of testing when we're looking at students for admission. The first is an academic-based test. You may have heard of the SAT or the ACT test. And the second is an English proficiency test. I have them listed here, some different types of testing. Now, it's important to know that these tests are measuring very different things, right? The academic test is theoretically measuring your writing ability, your math ability, those types of things that you've studied in secondary school. Whereas the test of English proficiency is simply measuring the skill level you have in English. Hamilton is known as a strong writing and communication institution. Specifically, we have a reputation as producing some of the top writers from across the US and around the world. So it's important for English proficiency testing to realize English proficiency testing does not measure your intelligence or anything like that. It's just about a skill set that's necessary to be successful in our academic areas. Now, that said, a big question we receive is, are you going to be test optional? The answer, yes. Hamilton will be test optional for this coming year. However, when we say test optional, what do we mean? We mean we will not require the SAT and the ACT for admission, and this will include international students. If you do not have those testing elements, you do not need to worry about it. You can apply, we'll consider you without those testing. However, we will not be optional with English proficiency results. Now, the reason for that is, again, Hamilton has very, very high level of writing and communication that happens across all of our coursework here. And we also have options that are reasonably low in cost and are virtual options. So you wouldn't have to travel and put yourself in risk to get to a testing center in order to prove English proficiency. So we do not actually waive the English proficiency requirement. Instead, we accept TOEFL at home, IELTS indicator, and the Duolingo English test, which are 3 different versions of testing English proficiency that you can take online and for reasonably low in cost. Now, oftentimes we hear from students in Ghana, ma'am, I've studied in English my entire life, and I definitely understand that. As I mentioned, I have visited Ghana myself. I also understand that there's multiple different cultures and tribes across Ghana. And while I want to believe that every applicant would have the English proficiency to be successful, there is not a way really for us to differentiate each applicant in a fair method. So for that reason, we do not offer TOEFL or English proficiency waivers. However, if testing is cost prohibitive for you, we do have options to provide vouchers to pay for your testing fee for these online options. And won't you get a great high score on your English proficiency test? It's my joke. It'll be so great. You'll have such a great score. With that said, we are going to be evaluating your application holistically, the way we always have. Students want to ask and say, what are you doing to replace English proficiency, testing, SAT, ACT? We are not going to replace it with a new element. Instead, we are going to continue our focus on the holistic application review, which we have always had. The most important part of all college applications to any college around the United States is, of course, your academics. And in Ghana, that's usually the WASI results, right? Maybe your mark sheets. Those elements are always going to be the strongest portion of your application regardless. And then combining that with the extracurriculars, the recommendation letters, your college essay, etc. So then students say, okay, if you're test optional, will I be placed at a disadvantage if I do not submit testing, right? The answer, no, we are not going to, we will admit students with testing and we will admit students without testing. It is your preference. However, you can go to our website and see the academic profile for students we admitted last year. If you have access to SAT or ACT test scores, you can see how would your testing compare with students we admitted last year. If your testing is within the range of our average testing, then maybe send it to us. If not, don't send it to us. So it's a personal choice, but we will be admitting students with and without testing next year. So college essays is the other portion of the application that generally causes quite a lot of anxiety, right? So let's talk a little bit more do and do not with college application essays. So the first is, again, consider voice. We talked about this with your overall application earlier, right? If we were to review your application essay, does this sound like you? Does it sound like something that you could potentially say and something that's relevant to you specifically? The second is you want to show through action. This means oftentimes we'll read essays and it would start, says, oh, it was a starry night and the wind rippled through the trees and beautiful imagery. The thing about that is it's very narrative. It doesn't tell us very much about you specifically, right? So we want to focus on you. What are you doing and how are you growing? What type of action are you having? And how have you progressed through the topic that you've selected? We want to think again about your overall application, looking at the forest, not just the trees. Does the essay that you write complement the overall application? Does it add additional context that we did not necessarily have through the rest of your application? So think about the application as a whole and how does your essay fit in there? We do, of course, want to have multiple drafts. And some of that is to avoid writing the wrong college name in there. And some of it is to make sure that your grammar is fairly correct. So we all know drafts are a good idea. Even those of us who consider ourselves great writers, we're probably not going to get it perfect in the first try, right? So multiple drafts. And it's important to consider the audience. The people who will be reading your essay are admission officers, right? So make sure that the topics that you're covering are appropriate for admission officers. I'll leave it there. Consider the submission of supplemental essays. So some colleges will give you additional opportunities, and for instance, Hamilton is one of them, where we would give you the opportunity to submit an additional, why do you wish to enroll in Hamilton College essay? And if you have that opportunity, consider taking it. Do not just describe things narratively, as we said earlier. Do not overstress. Some students get so much anxiety about the essay. We're not giving out Pulitzer Prizes here. We're also not expecting you to be a perfect writer yet. If you're already a perfect writer, you probably don't need to go to college, right? You're already perfect. Why do you need to improve? So it doesn't need to be perfect, but it should be fairly grammatically correct, right? So if there's one error, that's okay. And also don't think about, we're not thinking about Pulitzers here. Do not write an essay that you think the college wants to hear about. Again, you want to be genuine to who you are. So try and focus on your genuine experiences. Do not reference a specific college or university. And do not exceed the word count, right? That's pretty good advice. Now, we have a checklist for you here. If you're trying to think what would make an essay strong that a college would want to review, some things you can keep in mind when you're considering your essay to be strong. Is it interesting? Does it show who you are? Does it convey something important to you? Does it convey how you think? Is the overall mechanics of the essay strong? And the last thing we wanted to talk about is, does it sound like you? And this can be a really good piece of advice for your overall application. If you think about your overall application, pretend that you printed it out and left it in a hallway somewhere. If someone found that application without your name, would they be able to say, oh, I know who this belongs to. This belongs to this person, right? Because it sounds like that student, it's genuine reflection of that person. Same with your essay. If your essay was found printed off in a hallway without your name, would your teachers, would your friends be able to say, I know who this essay is for? So something to think about. Now, also on our website, if you'd like to do additional review, Hamilton College has a page called The 7 Deadly Sins of Writing, which is basically from some of our writing professors saying some of the things they see in students who apply. So you can see some rules of grammar and ways to improve your writing through that page. We also have a page called Essays That Worked, which is an example of essays that were submitted to students who were admitted to Hamilton College. So you can get some ideas for some structure. Now, we talked earlier about the fact that there are application types. Often we hear from students, what is the deadline, right? It's important to note that colleges will often have multiple deadlines. So at Hamilton, you may apply early decision or regular decision. Some colleges may also have something called early action, different names of plans. Basically, this means when you apply to the college, when will you get your response back, your positive or negative admissions decision? And also, what are you telling the college about your priority for that institution? So Hamilton, the earliest deadline we have is for early decision 1. Early decision, when you see that term, what it means is you're telling a college, if you admit me, I promise to enroll because you are my top choice college, right? So it's what we call binding, which is a little scary word, but it just means you're my top choice college, I promise to enroll. Now, if you apply regular decision, which is January 1st, that is saying, I wish to be considered for you, but I'm still going to be considering a lot of other colleges as well. So it's not binding. Now, you can see we have 2 early decision deadlines. That's early decision 1, early decision 2 at Hamilton. And that really is about, we like to joke, early decision for the procrastinators, right? Now, why would somebody apply early decision? versus regular if early decision is binding. Usually, the admissions rates for early decision are significantly higher than regular decision. So if you are applying to a selective college or university and you say, this college or university is definitely my top choice, you want to consider applying early decision because it will likely improve your opportunities for admission. This is even more so if you will be applying for a significant amount of financial aid. We do offer financial aid each year and admit students to regular decision, but the admission rates are lower than those students who apply early decision 1 or 2. So that's really what you should be thinking about when choosing your application plan. Demonstrated interest. This is a term you might hear every once in a while. Really what this means is engagement with a specific college. Now, colleges want to hear from you. Again, a lot of colleges will have more applicants from around the world that will be potentially academically successful, but they're not sure how they would be contributing to a community, right? So it's important, they want to know about you, they want to know what's important to you and why you think you'd be a good fit for this specific college. So engagement with a college really measures that aspect. How engaging have you been with the college, and how dedicated have you been to the college? How interested are you in this college? And do you know, for instance, if you applied to Hamilton and the only information about why you applied was because we're a large college and we're located in New York City, neither of those things is accurate, right? So we want to make sure you know about us specifically, and we want to get to know more about you. So options for engagement, you have the opportunity to sign up for our databases. As I mentioned, you can put your information in that URL that we shared, which would give you a contact list. We also have opportunities for virtual engagements. We're going to talk about those in just a little bit. Demonstrated interest is, and this whole talk of engagement is something that matters to some colleges and is not part of the review for different colleges. So it's a little confusing, but you can think about selective colleges that receive more applications each year, many more applications than they have spaces. Oftentimes demonstrated interest is an important portion. I know at Hamilton it is. Now, again, we want to think about how engagement with a college would help both the student and the college learn more about fit, because it provides you more context and experience about what is the college really like in real life and how would you be as a student on that campus. Context. I want to talk a little bit about context because this is some of the aspects that color in your application and sets an application apart, right? So when we have holistic review without cutoffs, it means we're able to consider the context that a student is engaged in. And oftentimes this means, how did this student challenge themselves in relation to the opportunities they had available? Traditionally, context we might consider would be if a student has a standardized curriculum, they don't have selection choices for curriculum. Or if there are limited opportunities for extracurricular activities, maybe they have significant family or traveling responsibilities. Maybe they've had medical challenges. These would be things that we would consider as part of the application. This year, this is going to go further, right? We're all experiencing this international pandemic, which means that there's going to be canceled testing. There's going to be major disruptions to school and life environment, and there's going to be increased economic hardship. Holistic review means that we can consider these, and these are important aspects for us to know about in certain circumstances when considering students for admission. However much you want to share with an admission office is up to you, but you should know that admissions officers do take into consideration context and challenges that you have been confronted with this year when reviewing your application. So if you are comfortable sharing, you should consider doing so. Now, finally, we want to talk a little bit about financial aid and scholarships. Now, Brenna talked earlier about Hamilton's financial aid policy. We do not offer merit-based scholarship. Instead, we use all of our resources for financial aid to make college affordable for all students. However, not all colleges will have that same policy. So you want to think about, how do you apply for funding, right? Sometimes the deadlines will be different. If the admission deadline is different for early decision versus regular decision, make sure you know those deadlines. And we have a list of forms here that oftentimes you would need to submit in order to apply for financial aid. And it is important when you're filling out financial aid forms that you are emphasizing how much your family actually has access to in order to support your education. So if your family has access to $500 per year in order to fund your education in the US, that is the information you should be reflecting on the form, not the overall cost of enrollment. The reason is if we offer you admission, then we will cover the remainder at Hamilton College. We would cover the remainder of the cost, including airfare, medical insurance, all of those things in order to have you successful here. But we use the information you provide to be able to figure out your financial aid package. And it's also important that when you eventually apply for a visa in the US, all of your financial documents need to make sense in order for you to be granted a visa in that visa interview. So questions you want to ask all universities and colleges when you're applying. What type of scholarships or financial aid are available? Would they have merit scholarships for you to consider, or is it all need-based? And do you meet 100% of demonstrated need? So some colleges will meet close to 100%, and they would still have a gap of how expensive this would be for you to pursue. So you want to consider with each college, do they meet 100% of demonstrated need? Now, we're going to pass it to Brenna for our last slide, and then we'll have time for questions.
Absolutely. Last but not least, we wanted to give you a few examples of how you can engage with Hamilton virtually. Obviously, we understand that not everyone can come visit us in the US, and in fact, our campus right now is closed anyways. So we do have a lot of opportunities to learn more about Hamilton. First and foremost, I know Anna mentioned earlier that we were sharing that link to get more information about Hamilton, should be on Facebook that was shared. So it's a quick form that you fill out, and then you'll get all of the invitations to all of our virtual events. So we would absolutely recommend filling out that form. Other ways though, we have a page on our website called Discover Hamilton that lists all of our upcoming events. Highly recommend checking that out. We have both a full-length virtual tour and also different abbreviated ones that show particular parts of campus. We also have a really awesome YouTube channel that has lots of different types of videos, both tours and also just elements of campus that you can learn about. So that's a really good resource too. We have a virtual information session, a live one that is every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So you'll see the links to that on our website. We also have some virtual panels that are coming up. There is one specific to international students that will be in the next couple of weeks. And then you can also sign up for a virtual interview. If you are going into your last year of high school right now, if you'll be a senior in the fall, then you can sign up for a virtual interview and you get to chat with an admission officer or one of our senior interviewers. So those are just a couple of examples of ways you can engage with us. And then here is our contact information, both for Anna and myself, and also for the Education USA offices. So feel free to contact either Anna or I if you have questions about Hamilton or you just want to connect with us.
We're now ready to answer any questions that have been submitted. And again, thank you for your time and your attention. This has been fun.
Thank you so much, Anna and Brenna. This is so much information. I'm sure our listeners have notebooks full of information by now. We have plenty of questions here, so I'll start reading them out so we can answer as many as we can before time is up. So the first one is asking, can transfer students from Ghana get scholarships to continue their studies at Hamilton?
Yes, so we accept transfer students each semester. So in the August semester and in the January semester, the deadline for August semester has passed at this point. So the next time a transfer student could apply would be for January. That deadline will be coming up, I believe it's in November. So you still have time for that. We would not require a WES evaluation. If you've heard about those foreign credential evaluations, we would require mark sheets and transcripts from your Ghanaian university to be submitted. We would not require a foreign credential evaluation.
Okay. The next question is, racism exists in the US. How does Hamilton protect international students?
So you're correct. Racism does exist in the US. And I'm sure you're reading a lot of information nowadays about protests and activities that have been across the country. The first thing I would say is that our president has created a task force, which is going to be identifying options for inclusion and diversity support for students and faculty and staff across our campus community, and that includes our international students. That's going to include an influx of additional funding, which is going to support new academic programming, which is support for diversity issues. We're also going to be supporting hiring increases of faculty staff members who are from a variety of backgrounds. For international students particularly, we have additional resources on campus through our Dean of Students office. You would have access to our advisors in that capacity. We are also, it's important to note, we are a rural New York location, which means if you read things about some of the activities in large major cities, Hamilton is quite a different environment than that. So it's important to note that New York does not necessarily mean just New York City, because we are about 4 hours from New York City. So I would say we're doing a lot of things across our campus in order to ensure that our students, our faculty and staff and everyone is heard and supported going through this process.
Okay, thank you. I want to introduce my colleague, Ms. Marilyn Owusu from the Kumasi office, and to let her know that there's a question about Kumasi. Where is the Kumasi office located? Before she answers, I want our viewers to also remember to look on the screen. We have our contact information there. Ms. Owusu, where is the Kumasi office located?
Thanks, Bernice. As you rightly said, there are 2 Education USA centers in Ghana, one at the US Embassy and one in Kumasi. The one in Kumasi is based at ACE Consult at Asokwa, and we are located at the Top Martins complex, so that when you get to Asokwa, you can just locate us on the 3rd floor of Top Martins complex.
Thank you very much. Back to Anna and Brenna. Does the university offer, so this is Hamilton College, do you offer online educational opportunities?
That's a really good question. We traditionally do not offer online education. As you may imagine, for the past few months, our students have been learning online because of the pandemic. We did send students home from campus in March this year, and they completed the remainder of the semester virtually. So that was online, but that is not traditional for Hamilton, and we do not have ongoing online classes.
Okay, thank you. Another question for you. UK offers 2 years of postgraduate working visa for foreign students. Does US have similar opportunities for international students who complete there?
Yes, so the US, similar to the UK policy, and Australia has a similar one, I believe. The idea is if you complete a degree in the United States, you can apply and qualify for what's called optional practical training, which is traditionally a 1-year time frame where you're able to work in the United States after finishing your degree. If you are studying in a STEM subject, a science subject, you can extend that time frame to 3 years. So for all students who complete a bachelor's degree, international students, if you complete a residential bachelor's degree in the United States, you can qualify for that 1 year of optional practical training. For students who are in STEM fields, they can apply for the 2-year additional timeframes. That would be 3 years in total.
Okay, thank you. As a non-American applicant, how will Hamilton support me after graduation to pursue graduate studies in a field like medicine?
So medicine is a challenge because medicine means a lot of different things, right? I know in Ghana, there's a very strong interest in students to become doctors, as well as nurses in different medical fields, dentists, etc. In the US, it's really there's content there for a whole presentation fully on the application to medical school. What I can say is we do have pre-professional advisors which focus on medical and medical field preparation for both postgraduate studies and for internship and job opportunities for students. Now, our job placement rate and graduation school rate of 97% includes all of our international applicants. So international applicants have the exact same access to individual career advisors throughout their study process, as well as academic, pre-professional, including pre-medical academic advising throughout the process. We also bring employers to campus multiple times per semester, including employers who are interested in hiring students for OPT or even students who've completed US degrees and wish to then work abroad in another country, for instance, Pepsi in Kenya, something like that.
Great, thank you. So I have 3 questions on visa. I will read them and answer them, and then we move forward. The first one says, how would fall admits proceed with visa acquisition? Some schools require students to be on campus by some date in August. Then the next one is, please, with the pandemic, how can we go for visa interview? And then the other one says, when can admitted students be permitted to go for visa interview? So all these questions are similar. I will answer them together. It's true that the embassy is closed. At this point, we're not sure when we will go back. But one thing is for sure, when it becomes possible for us to go back to work, be it the consular section or the educational section or any other section, the announcement will go out. Madam Ambassador will let the office know, and then the appropriate publicity will be made. So keep checking the embassy's Facebook website, the Facebook page and the embassy's website and all the social media handles. Information will go out when it becomes possible. For those who have to be in school by a certain date, it's important to also let your schools know. In Ghana right now, it's not just the embassy that is closed, our borders are closed. So even if you can apply for visa, you will not be able to travel at this time. So discuss with your school to look at other options until it becomes possible for people to interview and also to travel. If you can consider the option to start your semester online, I think it will be good to do that so you don't get overly stressed. Thank you. So another question for Hannah and Brenna. Does students from Ghana, for example, which is an English-speaking country, require English proficiency certificate or test before admission? You covered this, but I'm reading it so you can answer.
Yes, it is required. And again, the reason is an equity reason, unfortunately, where we need to make sure that everyone has the same standards. And we do have options for students to take testing for low cost online. And we also have options for fee waivers for those testing costs if those are prohibitive.
That's nice to know. Thank you. We're still doing the Q&A. If you just joined us, this is Education USA Ghana Facebook Live session with Hamilton College. And we have on the screen contacts for our 2 presenters from Hamilton, and then also for the 2 EducationUSA offices. So I have also about a few questions on graduate studies. Some of our audience are asking if you have PhD programs and full scholarships for that. Also, if you have programs, master's programs in psychology and international affairs.
At Hamilton, we are a purely undergraduate college, which means that we do not offer either master's or PhD programs. We do, however, as Anna was describing, have a lot of support to get our students into those programs after they graduate from Hamilton, and those would be at other institutions. So we do have advisors and other guidance that can help you go on to graduate school after Hamilton, but we do not have those programs on our campus.
Thank you. Another question on scholarship. So one of our audiences wants to know what a full scholarship at Hamilton entails.
So Hamilton offers only need-based scholarships, which means we have some students who apply to Hamilton and fill out their financial aid forms, and it says, I have $0 that will be able to be dedicated towards my study in the US. I don't have access to funding for that. If we admit students in that circumstance, we would cover everything and the cost of attendance, which would include academics, include housing, food, transportation to and from the campus, and medical insurance, all of those expenses, books, etc. So it's important to consider that financial aid calculator tool that we have on our website, because you can put information in there that says, this is the amount that my family would be able to support. And then it will give you a number which would say, okay, this is the scholarship you would have at Hamilton. It's important to note that the majority of your scholarship would be grants, so free money from Hamilton to support your education. You would have, if you needed full support from the college, meaning you did not have resources, you would have to do a work-study program, which would be, you would have an on-campus job for the semester, and you would take a minimum amount of student loans from the college, from Hamilton College, which would be about $3,500 for your first year, $4,500 for your second year, $5,500 for the remaining 2 years. So that way, the overall cost of attendance, which is about $78,000 US, we would cover the remainder of that. So we do have students who are on absolute full scholarships at Hamilton, including students from Ghana who are on full scholarships at Hamilton.
Great. So there's another question about whether Hamilton has summer programs, and if you do, what is the process to apply to them?
Another great question. Unfortunately, we do not offer summer programs either for our students or for non-Hamilton students. We don't have any summer programs at all.
We have research for our students, for continuing students, but not for external students.
There's another question about what programs you offer at Hamilton and which of them are your top programs?
Very good question. So we have over 50 areas of study on campus, so I won't list them all, but some of the most popular ones are economics, mathematics, biology, creative writing, and world politics. Those are kind of the top 5 or 6 programs on campus in terms of popularity.
We're actually very strong producers of mathematics graduates, particularly. We consistently rank amongst the top percentile of percentage of math graduates. We actually have higher amounts of math graduates than MIT, University of Chicago, and Caltech. That's kind of a fun fact for you.
Great. Wow, all too soon. This is all time will allow us to read out and answer. But I believe that you have all enjoyed this session. You have learned a lot. We have our contacts still on the screen before we leave this page. Please do well to take them down. So if you have follow-up questions, you can reach out to EducationUSA Accra or Kumasi, or reach out to Ms. May and Ms. Weiss to ask more questions about Hamilton, or to ask EducationUSA to ask questions about the process and how we can be of assistance. At this time, the embassy is closed, but we're still working virtually. So reach out to us and we'll do our best to reach back to you. Thank you all very much. I hope you've had a wonderful time with us again today. Same time next week, tune in for another wonderful session. I want to say thank you to Ms. Owusu from the Kumasi office, and Ms. Weiss and Ms. May for the great presentation. Thank you, and to our faithful, loyal audience, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.